Okay, now, there was two, I got around to three of the groups. There was two excellent teaching moments. One happened in this room, and it's obvious of the group that's in here, and Tom is the head of the group, who had done a bunch of deals and who hadn't. Marcus saw to the bottom line, not instantly, but almost instantly. He figured out, and he doesn't even know what EBITDA is, but he figured out what EBITDA was in about between 10 and 25 seconds, more or less, okay? Maybe 45 seconds, okay? He figured out what to pay for it within about another 10 seconds. And he said, you lost $62,000 mistake is cheap. Because he's made bigger ones, as I have. But he's done a bunch of deals. It was so, for you guys that were in that group, you saw. And he was ready to go to the next deal already. Next.
We had to slow him down.
Yeah. And okay. Because he's done a bunch of deals, he trusts his instincts, and then even if he's fucking wrong, he knows it doesn't make a shit. That makes no difference. Remember, when you're going to take a hit above the waterline, I'll leave you alone. When you're going to take a hit below the waterline, meaning you're going to sink the motherfucking ship, then I get involved. Well, he understands that. And what you were talking about here in the first group are hits above the waterline. Doesn't make a shit. Okay. Second teaching moment. They were saying that black people are always late, but I try to stick up for you. I try to stick up for you.
I was here first.
Yeah. Well, he sold you down the river, right? He was the first guy to rat you out, believe me. Okay. The second teaching moment came in the trophy room when they were trying to figure out or define or come up with words to describe a motivated seller, more or less. And they were talking about nuances. And I had alluded to that before we left. This is not a nuance program. Remember the difference between Tesco, perfume, and arpege. We're the Tesco. We're slam, bam, thank you, ma'am, bend over. We're next. We're done with them. And then we kick him to the curb. That's what this program is. There's nothing fucking nuance about it. You make a lot of fucking calls, and you'll make a lot of fucking money. There are no nuances in this deal. There aren't. It's the antithesis of how people have gotten successful. And when we listen to the webinars of the guys, after 7 months, I'm using my words, not his words. I pissed around for 7 months trying to be nice to people, trying to convince people, and then I just fucking punched them in the face, and I closed 2 deals in a week. I closed 3 deals the next 2 weeks. 100% financed. Because the odds are there's nobody in this room, and even when you get outside assistance, that's a good enough salesman to sell anybody anything. You're rat shit. If you were a fucking salesman, you wouldn't be here. It's like a year or two ago, we had the leading Mercedes salesman in Britain, and we had another leading salesman. And they laughed and laughed. They said, I've never heard how many different ways do you really have to make cold calls. Does it all come down to calling? And for those of you that have hired somebody to do the calling, you're going to fail. We have guys that have bought automatic dialers and all this bullshit to make calls. And actually, that you can now computerize, have screening questions. Forget about it. The guy that leads the country in Mercedes sales who's in London, they have two different systems in selling cars. It's the up system. In other words, when they come in the door, Tom's up first, then Goins is up, then Jeremy's up. You take them in order. Then there's every man for himself system, where you just grab whoever comes in. You never go take a piss. You never go take a shit. You never go have lunch. Those guys are the guys that lead the nations in sales. But this kid, I said, well, what are you up? He says, we're on any way you want to grab the prospect. And I laughed and I said, you probably go out on the street and flag him down. He says, that's exactly what I do. He goes out on the fucking street and flags people down driving by that's got a 2 or 3 year old Mercedes, and he jumps on them right there. And he leads the UK in Mercedes sales, not by 10%, by 500%. I had a guy who did his first deal a few months ago, and he wrote me a letter, and he said something to the fact, if you had told me that I was only 2,000 calls away from doing my first deal, I would have sent you the 20 grand and I wouldn't have come to the seminar. I'm going to say it again, slow. If you had told me that I was only 2,000 calls away from making my first deal, I would have sent you the 20,000 and not come to the seminar. Doesn't have to be 2,000. He's a shitty salesman. He's got no sales skills, kind of like Connor. No sales skills. Connor is too smooth to make QLA work so far. He's too polished. He's too educated. Now, most of you can't say that in this room because you're pig fuckers. And you don't even know which end of the pig to fuck. That's pretty dismal. YouTube, did you get that? Well, maybe that was a little too fast for you because the YouTubers are retarded. Yeah, and I don't mean retarded. I don't mean this kind of retarded. I mean just you're retarded in between your ears. Okay. Okay. Well, those were the 2 points that I got from. This is. Where's the picture of myself? This is. He's got a woman I like. Boom! Crack his head open, take the slut out and fuck her. That's this system. You ought to do perfect with this system. And they've been calling me this, since I was in my early 20s. Okay, now, questions now. So far, what you've covered, we're not in the preparing or presentation stage. Questions from any of the groups on anything so far? Yes, sir.
Ours looks like it's a mergers and acquisitions. It's a merger. So are we taking part into being one of the companies and merging with the other company then? When we're presenting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, because it's about the share price and all of those things, so we're looking at how much we're paying for.
Correct. Does it make sense? And some of the cases, not just here, but at the business schools. I won't say they're trick cases, but because they've already happened, like AOL Time Warner is a case that's been used for, I guess it's almost 20 years now, and how that failed, because 95% of acquisitions, stroke mergers, fail not because the numbers don't work, because cultures don't work. Because you have two strong leaders at the top of both organizations that have, and leadership starts at the beginning and at the top, and especially with their founders, permeates the organization, and the cultures are absolutely different. And so, remember, I've never seen a business plan fail on paper. So when Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan or whoever, Bank of America, puts these proposals together for company A to take over company B, they make it all work vis-a-vis numbers, but the cultures quite often don't work. And that's why if you've been through the cycles long enough, like I have, whatever's on consolidation in the 70s consolidation in the 70s is going to be under consolidation in the 90s again, because they will have divested themselves in the 80s. And you just, some guys just play that cycle. They play that cycle knowing that eventually things come to fire. For example, Facebook was a darling for a long, long time, and now it's not the darling. And it wouldn't be, even though Zuckerberg has a stranglehold on running the company because of the amount of shares that he owns, they've already, they've got a lady, they brought a lady in a couple years ago, and they're making some changes. And nobody likes to I heard yesterday or this morning he lost $20 billion off his net worth last week or this week. Nobody likes that. That doesn't last too many weeks before fine, I'll step away. And you've seen big icon magnates get thrown out in recent months. Steve Wynn in the gambling sector. Moonves from CBS, Carlos Goosen, automotive, and there's been a bunch of them. And they didn't. And normally they would have given Moonves this $120 or $160 million severance package, but now every director that would have voted for that severance package, even though Moonves made all those guys rich, would be subject to shareholders' scrutiny and lawsuits. So nobody voted for his fucking package. He probably deserved some of it. He built CBS after Paley, who started CBS from 50 years before. So don't expect these boards to have your back or, what are that bullshit? I've got your six or all this horse shit. It's all horse shit. It doesn't mean anything. Because they don't. Because at the end of the day now, corporate governance, partially, not partially, mainly because of political correctness, will turn on any founder. And now you take 20, 30, 40 years to build a reputation, and it takes you 5 minutes to lose it. One stupid error, one stupid mistake, and it's all down the rat hole. And then the people that try to defend you, he was there 20 years, he did this. There's less and less of them. And when you're outrageous like me, when I got thrown out, nobody came to defend me. But for people a lot less than outrageous than myself, don't get defended. Nobody stands up for them. Because they're afraid of what people say, they're afraid of what people think, and they're afraid of the stigma. Because now the stigma carries over into finance. And you can't get the deals financed. And, that's your lifeblood. As long as you have the ability to finance transactions, you can go from whatever industry you want to almost any part of the world. Not any part of the world, but almost any part of the world. There's 2 or 3 parts of the planet that are pretty damn tough to get deals done unless you're steeped into the government, like in Russia and a few others. Any questions about your cases? Okay. If there's no questions, we will reconvene back here 5 o'clock, right? 5 o'clock. And I cut out Little Hitler, but you're going to get to see Little Hitler. Marcus got a good memory. He turned into a fucking psychopath, a rich psychopath. And when he stood in front of this group screaming and ranting and raving, and he had just made 36 million euros. He coasted in from making 36 million euros, and he was coasting out. And the audience, the group just looked at a young kid. Then he was about 23 or 24. And you don't have to be Hitler, but you got to toughen up for sure. Everybody in this room's got to toughen up. Okay, no questions? Break, and I'll be around to see you. The first one I'm going to go back and see is you guys, because I missed out on you. I was discriminating because there was too much blackness in that group, but anyway, we were going to put all the blacks in one group and but we decided not to. We decided because I'm so fucking PC now. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable how PC I've gotten. When I go to South Africa, I'm not going to be so goddamn PC. Okay, guys. Okay, YouTube.